just a second. Alrighty, so here we go. Welcome everybody. My name is Dan Martinez. I am the business process specialist for GTOPs Core. I'm joined by Jesse Rodriguez, who is the program manager for GTOPs and Core and other pathways. We're here to answer any questions you may have, and we're going to flip through this presentation to tell you a little bit more about the GTOPS Core program for those who are first-time applicants, as well as providing updates to the program for this year for anybody who may have applied in previous years. We have quite a few notable changes to go through, and we hope to answer any questions you may have. So without further ado, just a little peek at the agenda today. We're just going to go over some general stuff like grant writing tips, what GTOPS is, and then hone in on GTOPS core, eligibility requirements, how to apply, any updates, the scoring criteria, and then just leave you with a couple of resources and time for questions. And we just like to start pretty broadly. This applies to almost all grants that you may write in your professional career. But for any first-time applicants or volunteer grant writers, we like to provide some tips because all of these tips definitely apply to GTOPs, and we hope that they can apply to other grants. The first big one is understanding your funder's mission and goals. Especially with GTOPs, it's very important that you tie the work that you are doing to close the digital equity gap into the work that we are trying to pursue or the change that we're trying to stimulate within our community. As well as it's very important to describe a clear problem and solution. A lot of us have some beautiful programs that we'd like to, that our organizations administer. But without the problem or the root for why this programming is happening or why you guys are putting it on, it's hard to stress the importance of the work being completed, even though I know that we're all here for very important reasons and to support our communities. And in that same vein, making the impact of your idea and program clear. So having a problem and solution is great, but how will that impact your community? If you can solve a problem for one person, that's still great as long as there's like depth to that solution. But sometimes we can have like a shotgun approach where you're impacting a lot of people on a smaller scale. Just letting that scale be known and the impact of your program known within your grant writing, I think will help you take that extra take you that extra step in terms of like being a more competitive grant application. Seek advice and help as needed. We're open resources, open books. Jesse and I know this program like the back of our hands, and we're very familiar with what the review panels look for. So we're always here to help you and help steer you in the right direction. We're not going to provide answers, but we do have, or we're not going to give you the answer directly, but we do have a lot of tips and advice for when it comes to applying, as well as here to answer any questions you may have and clear up any sort of confusion that you may have around certain subjects throughout this application process. Starting early and meeting deadlines, that applies to everything, but it's hard. We totally understand. Unfortunately, there is not an extension for GTOPs. The deadline is pretty firm, but that's why we recommend that you start early. It's not an extensive application, but we do ask for a lot of other documents that may be in your queue. I'm gonna let Jesse jump in here real quick.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on talking about this until the last minute here, but I also wanted to throw out one additional recommendation. And Dan, I might have cut you off right before you got to the last one, but one additional set of recommendations around artificial intelligence. So Dan and I have noticed a significant increase in the use of AI tools in last year's cohort of applicants, and we can tell. It is right now easy to pick out which applications have had AI assistance. It is totally fine to use AI if in the process of generating your applications. There's nothing wrong with that. Just beware that everybody else who uses the same or similar prompts based on the same guidelines that we have, it's going to give you a very similar, if not almost exactly the same output. So just be careful. Use it for your first drafts only, and then go back and add detail and nuance to your application that can help us get a better understanding of your specific application and ideas. Otherwise, all of the applications kind of tend to sound very same. and we've had review panelists last year just note how similar many of the applications felt. They used the same exact formatting. They hit the same points, and so just do your best to make your application unique. And if you do use AI, be sure to only use it for that first draft. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you, Jesse. Yes, I totally concur. We'll get into this a little later, but we did add some AI usage guidelines to our application guide. So everything Jesse said is going to be in that application guide, along with a few other helpful tips and some requirements for AI usage in GTOPs. But again, totally allowable. It's just in your to your best benefit if you do go back and edit some of the outputs that you receive from AI. But yes, the last grant writing tip we have is to keep trying. A lot of GTOPS applicants who don't make it in the first round, we have seen them have success in other future rounds. Some people apply 2, 3 years in a row and then get it on the fourth try. Some people get it on the second try or the first try. But don't give up. This is a good chunk of change, and we like sharing it with different, diverse kinds of organizations that do different kinds of digital equity work around Austin. And it definitely just depends on the priorities of the review panel that year or what the community needs that year. So yeah, we just highly recommend that you keep trying and give it another shot year over year. So just to get into GTOPS, I think most of you I'm familiar with at least a little bit, or I've seen you apply in the past, but there may be some new faces in here that I'm not familiar with. Just broadly, what is digital inclusion to start? I'm just going to read directly from the slides, but digital inclusion is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. Digital inclusion is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. And this is according to the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. Basically, to put that in like layman's terms, as our world increasingly moves more into the digital side of commerce, a lot of things are moving digitally. So like healthcare, banking, some portions of voting even. So like registering to vote. More and more of our life is moving to the digital side. And so anybody who isn't fully capable of accessing the digital world is missing out on a lot of the what used to be critical components of life. And we don't want to see anybody get caught in that gap and not have access to the tools that they need to thrive. And GTOS specifically values, grassroots organizations that have creative projects or, again, like that shotgun approach to help members of our community kind of close that digital equity gap. It's not always fully like just teaching someone digital skills. It can also be in a more creative facet, or it can be through physical rehabilitation. There's like a lot of people and different kinds of people that get left in the digital equity gap through different means. So it's not always going to look the same, but GTOP specifically does focus in on organizations that do are grassroots specifically or smaller organizations, but that are trying to provide that sort of digital equity work to their community. And the three main goals that we go about doing this, and I'm going to stress these goals a lot throughout this presentation. I apologize in advance. I'm going to repeat myself a lot, but it's just super important. And I feel like the more you tie your application to these three goals, the better chance you'll have for a competitive application. The three goals that we highly stress are increasing use of digital and communications technology devices. So getting iPads, tablets, laptops, desktops into our community for low cost or sometimes free. Increasing knowledge and skills of digital and communications technologies. So teaching people how to use these tools or how to thrive with these tools or use different parts of these tools that can help them achieve life goals like employment or healthcare. And then increasing access to and usage of the internet. So putting up a computer lab or, distributing hotspots or opening up or assisting people with getting affordable Wi-Fi connectivity within their home. Those are the three goals that we highly stress throughout this program and how we mainly try to close the digital equity gap. And I feel like most programs that apply can fit one of these three goals, if not multiple, if not all of them. And specifically to talk about the vision that this program sees, we do want to see a community in which all citizens of Austin and the surrounding area are able to fully participate in our digital society. And we do that through providing funds to organizations to create projects and programs that specifically focus on those three goals and close the digital equity gap that way. And here are just some like basic ideas to get you started. As you can see, there's a few examples of projects that you could complete, but things are always changing. There's new technologies that come every year. So these might be a little outdated, but still along the lines of like the kind of work that we've seen in the past and that we hope to see in the future. And now specifically to get into GTOPs and our funding pathways. Today we're going to specifically focus on core. So that is our largest pathway. I'll break this one down a little bit more as well as the changes to it in a second. But just informing y'all, we also do have two other pathways, GTOPs Capacity and GTOPs Mini. These are smaller grants and they serve more as a capacity building grants. Mini specifically is client focused. So if you have a project or program that's digital equity focused, you can apply this funding there. But GTOPS capacity is more so for building out your program or your organization's capacity and bandwidth. You don't have to have a project to complete GTOPS capacity, but you should already be doing digital equity work to be able to compete with the GTOPS capacity. And I'll get into GTOPS core here in a second. But yes, GTOPS core is our largest pathway. There has been some changes. So this year's award range, it's not really a range this year. It's $40,000 for everybody who receives the grant, but that's only if you request the full $40,000. If you request anything less than that, we'll meet whatever amount that you've requested, and then the leftover of what you didn't request may be used to fund another program or another organization. And we have $320,000 available in funding. And that just breaks down into eight $40,000 awards if everybody requests the full amount. But yes, this is our full-sized pathway, and it's meant to build out projects and programs to serve the community in closing the digital equity gap. Um, so just to let you know, half of the award is prepaid upfront. Typically, July 1st is when we try to shoot to have that first payment in your queue, if not like submitted on our side. Sometimes there are hiccups, contracting can take some time, but our goal is to get that first half of the award to you on July 1st. And then the second half should be paid on January 15th, around that ballpark area, depending on when you complete your reporting requirements. So there's like a claim and a status report that are tied to that. And then I will note that there is a significant contract negotiation process. It's just a lot of back and forth between figuring out the insurance requirements, as well as some of the contract exhibits. But we have streamlined the process a little bit this year by having everybody receive the same full $40,000 award. And as I mentioned, there is an insurance requirement that is fully detailed within the application guide. If you have any questions about insurance requirements, please direct them at Jesse. He's going to be the person that you'll mainly be communicating with about meeting those insurance requirements. And I'm just going to break down some of the bigger program updates that have happened this year. There's quite a few. The biggest one is the award, as I mentioned. There's now a $40,000 award. And in the past, there was a max award of $35,000, although most, if not anyone that I've seen, received the $35,000 since your award size was based on your score. But we've done away with that. So now just the top 8 scorers for GTOPS Core will receive a $40,000 award if they requested that. And as it says there, 8 minimum awardees. There can be more if somebody requests less, but I doubt it'll be likely, but we'll see. It definitely just depends on what programs are applying. This is a new requirement and that we asked for upfront. It was already required, but we just hadn't stressed it as much. But a pre-vendor registration is required, so you have to be a vendor with the City of Austin. The link is provided there. You can also find it in the application form as well as our website. But if you need any assistance with registering to be a City of Austin vendor, please just contact me and I can walk you through that process. The protest window, this is something that we've kind of streamlined a bit. So if you do not receive the GTOPS award, or if you have some sort of issue with the process that what happened to award GTOPs. You can submit a protest 1 week after the full app or the full award announcement has been made. So you should receive an email that lets you know about your status if you received it, GTOPS funding or not. And 1 week after, or 1 week between that date and then 7 days later, you can submit a protest, and then we'll have another week after that set aside to adjudicate these protests. And then, as Jesse mentioned before, we do include AI usage guidelines in our application form now, or our application guidance form. We highly recommend you look through those, especially if you are going to be using AI. It's more sort of some suggestions, more so than requirements or any strict rules. But again, I do highly recommend you take a look at that before using AI to submit an application. Just to go through a few of the other eligibility requirements, these are the really big ones, but we do require that your organization be a nonprofit 501(c)(3). If you are not a nonprofit, your organization can apply through a fiscal agent that is a nonprofit, but you would be a sub-grantee that would be completing some of the contracted work instead of being the main grantee. So the person or the organization that does apply as a nonprofit would have to complete a lot of the reporting and all of the financial documents and insurance requirements. You have to align with the GTOPS goals. As I mentioned before, those three goals, access to devices, access to the internet, or blanking out.
Digital skills.
Digital skills, yes, helping people use those devices and the internet. And then the final one, you have to fully comply with the standard GTOPS terms and conditions. The standard GTOPS current terms and conditions is our contract that you will be signing. That contract is on our website, so we recommend you read that through before you even apply. You have to fully comply. We've had some back and forth on this in the past, and we do just ask that like you read through that and you're able to adhere to all of the rules and requirements within that contract. A few more eligibility requirements. You can only submit one application this year. Past years, we've had an LOI process where you can submit 3 LOIs and then GTOP staff would approve or not approve some. But this year we have been asked to forego the LOI process. So we will only be jumping straight into the application, and you can only accept one submission for the application. If you have multiple projects or programs, please contact us and we can talk things through, let you know which one sounds the most viable or competitive. But yes, you can only submit one. Excuse me. You have to have the ability to provide or secure matching funds, and that can be through in-kind donations, cash match, or volunteer hours. So for every dollar of GTOPS funding that you receive, you need to have the equivalent in-kind donations, cash, or volunteer hours. Excuse me. So yeah, it has to be equal to or greater than your funding amount. And you can only receive GTOPS funding 3 times in a rolling 5-year period. And this is what that looks like. So starting in 2022 to 2026, so this cycle is included in the rolling 5-year period. You can only be funded 3 times within there. And as you can see, it can break down multiple ways. But usually it results in only like 1 or 2 years in being like GTOPS timeout. So not horrible, but just for some of our more competitive applicants out there, it gives the chance for other smaller organizations to be able to have a complete opportunity to compete within GTOPS, and instead of getting boxed out by some of these larger organizations that may have more experience or better grant writing teams or the funds to have a better grant writing team. And the application form has actually been simplified a bit. Last year, we are on the WiseHive program, but we've migrated from that software strictly into an Airtable form this year. It's just going to be a lot easier for us to be able to navigate it, and as well as for our review panel to be able to consume the documents. So that Airtable form is linked in this presentation that I will send out via email and is also available on our website. And the form is also available on the city's GTOPS website. So if you're looking to find that form after this presentation, please just direct there. And if Jesse, if you could drop the website link to the city website specifically, that would be great. And the Airtable form.
Will do.
We also ask that you review the applicant guide beforehand. That is also going to be found on our website, but it just lays out all the rules, requirements, and guidelines for applying for GTOPs. There is a question on the application that asks if you have read through that applicant guide. It is a requirement before applying, and the same goes for our standard terms and conditions, the boilerplate contract. Please read through that before applying. If you're new to GTOP specifically, we just want to make sure that you're going to be able to adhere to all of those rules and requirements before we start making agreements and making contracts and make a final decision. And for your application intake, there's a few other fields, but the most important things that we ask that you have on hand is your organization's legal name and the DBA. So if you're doing business under a different name, we would require both. It's just easier to find you if we know what your name would be listed as under certain for certain financial documents. We need your City of Austin vendor code. I stressed this earlier, but that vendor code is now a requirement. You have to do that before even applying for GTOPs. It causes too many hiccups in the process if you're applying for the vendor code after you've been awarded the GTOPs amount. And then relevant contact information. So whoever is the grant writer, we would like their information, or whoever is in charge of implementing the grant program and is tracking like performance metrics, as well as your executive director, who's most likely going to be the person who signs the contract. And finally, we need a nonprofit status confirmation. One of the questions on the application is just confirming that your organization is a nonprofit. But yeah, this is an exclusive, this application, or sorry, this grant is exclusively for nonprofit organizations. So without that, we ask that you do not apply or find a fiscal agent to apply on your behalf. And then just to let you know, the application window is from January 14th to February 11th, so a little less than a month, but we're here to help you along that process. We're always open for meetings, one-on-ones. We'll try to find time to fit you in, and we are here to answer any questions that you may have, whether that's via email or a Teams call or a phone call. Yes. And a few other fields in this application. There's a few added ones now that we've moved over to Airtable, so things may be a little remixed here. But the main things that you'll see that we're looking to confirm is your alignment with GTOPs. So those three goals, again, access to devices, digital skills, and helping facilitate access to the internet. We want to know a little bit more about the clients that you serve and their demographics. It's not super vital to this program, but we do want to have a full understanding of what your organization does and who you primarily help and which communities you help. We ask for a work statement, so a description of the project that you'll be completing. How does it tie into GTOPs? What are the program goals and objectives? And what does success look like for that? We also asked for a schedule of work. So what steps will you be undergoing to complete your program? When are you recruiting? When are you to train the educators, etc., blah, blah, blah. The proposed program performance measures and definitions. So we want to know how you plan on tracking success of your project or program, and then what specifically you mean by certain performance measures that you've listed. And this will go through a little bit more negotiation, most likely when we get to the contracting process. And this is the part that I've seen people struggle with the most. So if you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask any of us, and we'll walk you through the process of designing those performance measures. We also want to know more about your proposed budget and narrative. So if you receive this GTOPS amount, where are you going to put the money towards, where are you going to spend on, and why are you going to spend on it? And in line with that, we also ask for a funding summary, and this is specifically looking to track those match dollars. So for every dollar that you're getting from GTOPS, where are you getting the match amounts, whether that's in-kind donations, volunteer hours, or cash. We want to know what other organizations you may be funding your projects and programs if you did receive other grant amounts. We're also looking for a balance sheet from your organization and an income statement. Both of these should be from within the last year. We do want like a full year's worth of data though. We require that, so any applications that do not have a full year's worth of data may be kicked back, or we may ask for follow-up documentation. So yeah, just make sure it can be from, the end of December to the start of January 2024, or like a different timeline throughout there. But as long as it's a full 365 days worth of data, that's what we're looking for. And then a certification of receipt and review of the orientation. You're all here, so great job on that one. You got that one checked off your list. You just got to read through the applicant guide and the boilerplate, and you will have completed this requirement. And now to get a little more into what the review period looks like. So once you've submitted your application, it's going to move into the review phase. The review panel is made up of an independent review panel that is assigned by the city's technology commission, mostly citizens that just want to be involved in their community and help out. A lot of them have multiple backgrounds, whether that's education, other nonprofits, as well as technologists from within the Austin area. As I mentioned just now, other applicants for GTOPs have served on the review panel in the past, usually or specifically when they have been timed out of GTOPs. So if we know that they can't apply, we usually ask them to sit on the review panel. So a lot of expertise on this panel. I think they have really strong decision-making skills, and we help steer that process throughout. But they will be the ones that will be scoring your applications, not Jesse or I. Jesse and I do review applications for, just consistency, accuracy, and making sure that everything is complete and within the GTOPS realm, but we won't be physically scoring your application. And so the review process is split up in two stages. The first stage is made up of the half of the review panel scoring half of the applications and the other panel reviewing the other half, and then they switch during phase two. But what caps off phase one is the Q&A process. So throughout this process, during the first half, the review panel will be keeping notes and making any questions that they may have about your application. And then halfway through the review process, we'll send those applications to y'all, the applicant, or I'm sorry, those questions to y'all, to answer and fill in any gaps that may have been left by your application. This really is an opportunity to help flesh out your arguments and make your application more competitive. I highly recommend that you have a great application, but if you're a little more time or limited on time, the Q&A process is a great place to help flesh out your arguments and close any gaps that you may have left within the first time that you applied. But yeah, you typically have about a week to answer those questions, and we'll give them back to the review panel. And then the second half of the application will be scored by we'll switch applications and the cohorts so that all applications are reviewed by all review panelists. And this is the scoring criteria that we direct our review panelists to go under. I'm just going to be reading through them and providing a little context. But again, if you have any questions about any of these, we're more than happy to help. The first bucket is alignment with GTOPS goals. Again, devices, skills, and access to the internet. We want to make sure that the objectives and the strategy of the proposal are clear. So does it make sense? Is it in line with GTOPS? And then the program plan has demonstrated alignment with GTOPS goals. So those three goals, we want to make sure that the program that you're designing is both in the realm of digital inclusion and then fits the three goals that GTOPS was specifically designed to help close the digital equity gap for. And then the next thing we look for, the next bucket, is impact of your program. We want to know that this proposal effectively addresses a community need. You can still do a lot of good, but if this isn't a need that our community needs, or this isn't something that our community needs filled, it becomes a lot less of a competitive argument. And then the next portion of this bucket is the effects of the proposed program will last beyond the end of grant funding. We really like to see sustainable programs apply for GTOPs, things that have organizations and projects that have their own legs to stand on, but that the funding is just helping them provide that extra mile and go the extra mile for their clients. So yeah, sustainability and the letting us know that this program will continue even without GTOPS funding, that really helps the review panel feel confident that this is a program worth funding. And we also want to make sure that the proposal demonstrates collaboration with the community and other agencies. It is great to see when an organization has already established themselves well within their community. We like to see collaboration. So it doesn't always have to be through sub-grantees, but if your organization has worked well with others within the digital inclusion space and is sort of like a leader in that space, that's also great to see. And it doesn't have to specifically be within digital inclusion, just like other nonprofit works and other ways to assist people. It really helps bolster your argument and lets us know that you are a organization that takes this work seriously, is multifaceted, and is able to, take the funding and really run with it and help create the most good. A little bit more on the scoring criteria. The next bucket is success and feasibility. This one's pretty obvious, but like the work plan being clear, detailed, and reasonable. Does it make sense? Does it seem executable, especially within certain funding categories? Like, does this seem like a proposal that could be completed within the timeline that has been allotted? And we also want to know that the proposed measures are clear and appropriate for the work being described. So again, those performance measures. This is where I've seen a lot of people struggle in designing those performance measures. But if you do need assistance on those, we can help guide you for sure and let you know what a good performance metric would look like for if you're applying for GTOPs. And we do provide examples when you're applying for GTOPs and completing those forms, you'll see examples listed there as well as in our applicant guide. And then the next bucket is budget and fiscal responsibility. We want to know that the staffing for the plan or the project is clear and would be sufficient to meet the project objectives. So sometimes, budget constraints, you may have two individuals trying to assist 800 clients, or sometimes vice versa. 10 educators trying to only assist 7 to 3 clients. We just want to make sure there's a balance between the staffing and the clients that you're trying to serve. Is the work able to be completed by these individuals? We also want to make sure that the application demonstrates sufficient leverage funding to support the project and meet the one-to-one matching requirement. This one, either you got it or you don't. It's the meeting every $40,000 that we award you. You need to meet the requirement and have a dollar to show of funding to meet this one-to-one requirement. And we also want to make sure that the submitted budget is clear and reasonable for the proposed program. Does it make sense? Are the things you're spending on actually going to help the community, and are they actually going to tie into your program or project? And are they actually going to go towards assisting your clients, land on their feet in terms of digital equity sense? And outside of those, points that you can get for those buckets, we do offer some additional bonus points. The bonus points are really meant to help bolster certain projects that may not get the attention that, the community kind of would require. So smaller or medium organizations, we reward 5 bonus points, just because we know that they may have smaller grant writing teams, less bandwidth. So this gives them like a slight edge against those well-established organizations that have like grant writing teams of 10 individuals and have applied for GTOPs and won the GTOPs award multiple years in a row. This just gives them a leg up a little bit and helps even the playing field. GTOP's goal areas, so those 3 goals: distribution of devices, skills, and connection to free or low-cost internet. So whatever organization scores the highest in and applies each of these as their primary goal for GTOPs, they will be awarded an additional 5 points. So as an example, so this one's a little harder to communicate, but as an example, if my organization gets 90 points, and our main goal was knowledge of digital skills, but there's 5 organizations who scored more than 90 points, but their main goal is distribution of devices, I would get 5 points even though I scored less than 5 other organizations, because I'm the highest scoring organization who put knowledge of digital skills as my primary GTOPS goal. So depending on which of these categories you choose, you have the opportunity to get 5 extra points, also depending on how well you scored within the other criterias. And then we also are providing a new applicant bonus. So any applicants that are new to GTOPs, specifically, this is your first time applying. This is, again, a chance to give those smaller organizations a chance to have a leg up. and kind of even the playing field between those who have applied for GTOPs multiple times and know what to expect, and they have their grant writing down to a T. Just trying to even the playing field and offer more diversity within the GTOPS awardees that we do see. And then these are a little more specific to your program, but if your program is either under the IT middle skill career opportunities route or the creative media training development route, you'll just have to answer a few additional questions on the application. And if you do, and if you are within lines of one of these programs, you will also be offered an additional 5 points. Um, yeah, it's just because we're trying to stress all types of digital inclusion work. It's not always getting people just strictly giving them a computer or getting them Wi-Fi at home. Sometimes it is upskilling them for certain career paths, whether that is creative or more technical. All right, and that's the bulk of this presentation. We just want to provide a few resources. These are just some dates to keep in mind. The application submission timeframe has started as of yesterday and will continue until February 11th of this year. And then it is a very strict deadline. We will close the application for submission starting at midnight on February 12th. So please get that in. We won't have any extensions, unfortunately. We're being very strict with this as we're on a very measured timeline and schedule that we have to adhere to. But then the question and answer portion of the review period, you should get the initial questions on March 11th. And if you complete your application for GTOPS and are competing, we ask that you submit your application or your question responses to me via email by March 18th. And then finally, the final decision for GTOPS award will be decided on April 8th, 2026. Once all the final scores are submitted, Jesse and I do our calculations and we find the 8 highest scoring awardees. We go to the Technology Commission, who then has to approve the awardees of GTOPS, and then we have to, once they sign off on it, we can send out the announcement starting on April 9th. And I should have included this here, but the protest window starts on April 9th or whenever we do send out that email announcing the winners of GTOPS. Once that email is in your inbox, you have 7 days to respond if you have a protest to submit. And then after that 7-day period, once we've received all possible protests, we'll go forward with adjudication. And here are a couple of forms. So the Airtable form is there to submit an application, and then the applicant guide is available on Google Drive once you click on that link. Again, I will send this presentation to y'all, as well as I'll also include the applicant guide, the link to the Airtable form, as well as the link to the boilerplate contract or our standard terms and agreements, just so you have that handy and ready to begin your application. And here's just some contact information. Again, if you have any questions regarding this process, please email me and Jesse. Either of us can answer most, if not all, of your questions. And we're pretty available and try to make ourselves very available throughout this process. And if you need to know more about specifically digital inclusion or GTOPs, here are both of our websites. So the digital inclusion homepage has more information on digital inclusion efforts around Austin and different ways you can get connected. And then our grants homepage, you'll find everything about GTOPS Core, GTOPS Mini and Capacity, as well as all the resources I've mentioned throughout this whole presentation. So that's all I got. Apologies for talking so quick. I had a lot to get through, but we got the next 15 minutes for y'all to ask any questions or if you want to set up a meeting. Yes, April.
Hi, thanks so much for the information. Really appreciate it. I wrote down just a couple of questions. My first one is, does Airtable save progress along the way, or should we only start typing into it once we have all the answers drafted?
That's a tough one because I think it depends on your device mostly. I have seen it in the past where I've come back to a page and it reloads with the progress saved, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. If you can just keep the questions on a separate document, you can access the application at any point and you don't have to make a submission immediately. So you can just copy and paste all the questions, answer them in a separate document, and then submit them. I think that would be the best way to go about that. I would not recommend typing things in before you are ready to submit.
Great, thank you. And then one other question. We had noticed prior to this meeting when we were reviewing the materials that it says if you have capital equipment request greater than 5,000, it requires prior written approval. Who would we get that written approval from?
I think Jesse knows more of the specifics on this one, but it would probably start with one of our team members, specifically Jesse. But do you want to take this one?
Sorry, I was typing a response in the chat. Can you run that by me again?
Sure. So we had noticed in the information that was shared prior to this meeting that it said if you have a capital equipment request greater than 5,000, it requires prior written approval. So we're wondering who do we get that written approval from and what's the process for that?
Yeah, we would work through any formal approvals for capital expenses in the contracting process after the awards had been made. So we don't really have to worry about that for the applications. So we would worry about that in contracting, but me and Dan would just need to be notified if you do have anything in your budget that's a capital expense, which is defined as any physical asset over $5,000 in value. There might be just additional reporting that we have to do connected with that.
Okay, so you're saying we don't need to reach out to you before submitting the application, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we'll have to just address that in the contract negotiation phase.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Those are all my questions for now.
Sure.
Awesome. I'm just going to answer a few of the questions here in chat, and just answering it for everybody who's here, or who's watching this video afterwards. But Blair asked, do you know which month funds will be awarded? And Jesse responded that we're shooting for July 1st contract start date. And if we're timely, funds will go out in July. Again, there can be possible hiccups with contracting or finance things on our end. But we are shooting for that July 1st timeline or deadline. And we're pretty confident that we'll be able to be somewhere around there this year. The other question I see from Megan is, can we use funding to purchase equipment such as tablets, laptops, modems to implement our proposed program? Absolutely. The same information applies as with what April asked. Anything above $5,000 will need to be approved after the application phase and once you've been awarded the funds. But tablets, laptops, modems, all of that is typically the request that we fund within GTOPs. And that's perfectly in line with our vision for this, as long as it's going towards that program that is meeting one of those three GTOPs goals. Well, I'm not hearing any other questions. Oh, one more. All right. Does the application define value volunteer hours? It does, and we do update that year by year. But just to double check, Jesse, could you drop the link to the Texas Volunteer Independent Time Sector report? That will have the actual value. And just to answer your question, Blair, I don't know it off the top of my head. I think it's somewhere around $30 now per hour. But we have the exact dollar amount and cents somewhere, and we're going to provide that here shortly. But yes, there is a specific amount that we use to calculate it.
Yeah, I just put a link to the independent sector in the chat here. That's where we draw the value of volunteer time. We would use the rate specific for the state of Texas for the most recent year available for that calculation. So I didn't link to the Texas valuation just because I couldn't pull it up quickly, but they do have a place on this website where, yeah, state by state data. There you go. You would just find the state of Texas for the most recent year.
Yes. So Texas most recent year 2024 is 3359. I'm just dropping it in the chat. But yes, so 1 hour of volunteer time is equivalent to $33.59. So use that calculation when completing your funding summary and match requirement.
And I'll just go over this really quickly since we're talking about different ways to reach match. There are three categories of match funding. You can either match the dollars with cash, in-kind donations, or volunteer time. So we just went over volunteer time. Cash is just dollar for dollar match. In-kind would be anything that has value, but is not dollars. So it could be the value of a space that's being offered, for instance, at no cost to the project.
Right. Yes. Any more questions before we return this time back to y'all? All right. Well, thanks, y'all. Again, this process is open. We're an open book also in terms of answering questions and assisting. And we're here to answer any other questions you may have. Please just contact me and Jesse. Our emails are included in this presentation that we will send out via email after this. But please let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to set up a one-on-one meeting, offer guidance and support in any way we can. And yeah, best of luck. We're excited to hear your proposals, and excited to reach out and let y'all know if you guys have won. Any closing words, Jesse?
I'll just say, yeah, thanks for participating, y'all. Dan and I are more than happy to discuss anything with y'all. We're going to go ahead and close the recording now, Dan, and we can